most of what we know about ourselves and the world around us is based on stories that we've made up. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some stories are very inspiring, and some inform us about things that we've never encountered or thought of before. So stories have been very useful throughout history. Some of those stories are a little bit misleading, and those are the stories that we have to watch out for. And I'm not talking just about mythology here, because in science there are stories too. I mean, we've believed all sorts of nonsense throughout the centuries that's based on scientific opinion. So science is not immune to creating some pretty dodgy stories. Right? There's one area of science that really creates stories that are whoppers, and that's nutrition. Right? Nutritionists are constantly making up stories to justify doing different things nutritionally, following different dietary rules. And some of them are interesting stories, but many of them are nonsense. Right? And I guess that's understandable, because when we look at nutrition, we're talking about something that affects all areas of human culture. We're talking about anthropology, we're talking about history, we're talking about social studies, economics, and human health, all of these things. And so we need to really look at those stories of nutrition very carefully, and there's one story that's been predominant throughout the years that has dominated scientific opinion, and that's the story of man the hunter. Right? Man the hunter. That's the story that's been behind so many ideas about nutrition that we hold. And Man the Hunter is a very interesting story. It's a story of cunning and adventure and courage, and it's a very heroic story, an adventure story. And it all revolves around an image of man who goes out and hunts. Man hunts, and woman digs roots and picks berries, right? That's the way the story goes. And man, demonstrating his power, man can go out and kill, and man can protect the family and the tribe because he has these skills that he's developed. And man's heroic, he's clever, he's inventive. Man thinks up new ideas. He thinks of, a new design for a club. He figures out a new design for an arrowhead. Eventually, man will figure out how to design a power drill, right? So all of these things are available because man is this clever hunter. Right? This has enabled nutritionists to develop an idea about nutrition which is very interesting, and that is that man is strong because he eats meat. Meat makes man strong, right? And meat is man's food. And to break it down really simply, you have to eat muscle to get muscle, right? That's the equation. Now, this has dominated nutritional theory for so long that people believe it even when it's proved completely wrong. I mean, in terms of academics have a particular word for this theory, and that is bullshit. Right? This is academic bullshit. Nutritional anthropology, archaeology, common sense, logic, anatomy, all go in the opposite direction of man the hunter, right? And yet, man the hunter lives on. He lives on in the present day. Just take a look at one of the primary things, and that is that you have to eat meat to be strong. Well, there's many examples of animals that never had a piece of meat in their mouth ever in their life that are incredibly strong. Think about gorillas. I mean, these are vegans, right? And good elephants, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on of strong, powerful animals. So obviously, strength isn't completely dependent on eating meat. But if we look at our body, that's where we really get some breakthroughs that we should know, all of us. I mean, if you've looked at your face in the mirror, you've got to know that this is not a carnivore's mouth. It's just not. If it was a carnivore's mouth, it would be open all the way back to the back here so that we could get our mouths around and our teeth around a piece of meat so that we could pull it off the bone. That would be part of our evolutionary process. We don't have ripping and tearing teeth. In fact, these teeth that we kind of humorously call canine teeth are really more common with fruit eaters than anything else. They're certainly not the teeth that rip flesh off of a bone. That only happens in our imaginations. So here again, a story comes out. Now, cheeks have always been something that fascinated me, because cheeks are something that, in order to evolve cheeks, you have to hold food in your mouth for a period of time. Otherwise, you don't need cheeks. That's common sense. So if you have cheeks, it means usually that you put food in your mouth and you carry it back to your den, or you carry it back to bury it someplace so you can dig it up later on. You know, like squirrels and chipmunks have teeth. Or it means that you keep food, the primary food that you eat is food that you keep in your mouth for a long time while you're masticating it. Now, that should provide us with an insight, particularly when we notice that in the human mouth we have enzymes that break down complex carbohydrate. So the more we masticate complex carbohydrate, the more that food starts to digest in the mouth before it ever reaches the digestive tract. That's interesting. See, you don't develop that ability unless you need that ability, right? So it's the need that drives the development. And what about these hands? I mean, to imagine that these hands are hands that go out and grab a hold of animals and hold them while we rip the flesh off of their bodies with our non-existent canine teeth is absolutely silly. And these fingernails? Come on, people break their fingernails getting into plastic boxes, right? This is supposed to hold on to a struggling animal? I don't think so, right? It's so silly. And look at the digestive tract itself. This exceptionally long digestive tract makes it possible for us to have really efficient nutrition, really efficient digestion. Because if you eat nutritionally dense food, you want to get everything out of that nutritionally dense food. And so the human digestive system, together with the biome that's contained within it, that's like a factory for getting every nutrient that we need out of the food that we consume. High efficiency. And that's there with a plant-based diet. Right? So, now does this mean that we never ate meat? Well, of course not. Of course we ate meat in our past. And some people, in particular environments, ate meat as a primary source of food in their diet. But without exception, this was always done in areas where there were specific requirements. One of them was that there was not good soil to grow plants in. You know, so if you're in a high altitude, or you're in a desert environment, or you're in an area where you can't grow adequate plants, or if your culture is pre-agricultural and you're a hunter-gatherer, of course you depended on those things to eat it. So we can eat it if we choose to. But it's always been climate and soil and location that have to do with the choice of eating animal foods as opposed to eating plant-based foods. So it's the environmental demands. It would be silly to expect that Eskimos living in the far north could thrive on a fruit juice diet. It just wouldn't happen. There's not enough fat in that diet in order to withstand that harsh environment. So if we know that, what does man do? What happens when man stops eating meat? It seems like an uneasy decision for a lot of people. I mean, maybe you become a hippie. I don't know. You could become unmanly in some way. Maybe instead of a Budweiser, you're drinking a carrot juice. I mean, all sorts of horrible things could happen. But we have to drop this whole issue of man the hunter. Now, the issue of the image of man the hunter is somebody with a high-powered rifle that goes out into the wilderness and kills an animal that's a mile away from them just so they can have their picture taken. So man the hunter has become a photo opportunity. There's no heroism involved in it. Nothing's being protected. Nothing's being served, right? Eating according to the mythology is kind of silly, but it's something that gets repeated over and over again. And I understand this very well, because as boys, we're grown up. We're raised into the mythology that we want to be a meat and potatoes man. A meat and potatoes man means that you're a strong man. You're a manly man. Well, maybe we have to create a new story. I never hear anybody except men tell me that Okay, well, I'll start eating this kind of diet, but I'm not eating that tofu. Somehow tofu has become an image of the anti-meat. It's become an image of the anti-man. I mean, there's even things that are on the internet that say that you'll become homosexual and your penis will shrink up if you eat tofu. I mean, it's bizarre, but there it is, and it's a crazy response to a very strong story. It's about not meat, right? Not having meat. So what do human beings do? And what more to the point, what do men do? I like this little quote from Darwin, because what it's focusing on here is the capacity of creatures to evolve when they collaborate, when they improvise. Those are the things that create us moving forward and evolving. And this might be a cautionary tale for men now in society. We need to change the story. Maybe we need to be protecting some other things that we haven't thought about. Maybe we need to be protecting the environment. Maybe we need to protect our families and our culture from disease, from eating a terrible diet. Maybe we need to take a heroic stand against outmoded mythologies. Who knows? Maybe we even need to eat a piece of tofu once in a while. I mean, it wouldn't kill us. This is a presentation of the Human Ecology Project, eating as if life matters.